says we're live now.
Thank you very much. So I've got 5 things I need to go through. So if I just quickly read each of them out. So the first is to mention that the second round of grant giving from the Georgia Nomadix Trust was launched on the 9th of February, and it will remain open for applications to the 20th of March. So just 2 requests around that. Could I ask members to make organisations aware of the scheme through your own networks and by publicising it wherever you can? I've already contacted each of our local schools and have spoken to the headmasters at each and the headmistress at one, sharing details of how they might apply. Could I also ask you to make sure that you've got time available for when we get to the stage of reviewing the applications, and that will need to take place after the closing date of the 20th of March. The key point is the non-involvement of any councillors increases the demands on those who are willing to play a part. It had a small impact last time, and I hope everybody's willing to step up this time to play their part in terms of reviewing the applications. The second item, community caretakers litter pick takes place this Saturday between 9:45 a.m. and 12 noon. Thanks to Councillor Wiles for organising this, and it would be good to see many of us involved in the activity on Saturday. Third thing, some of you may know Jan Collier, who sadly passed away recently. She was a Sandwich resident since 1960, and she was a lady who looked after the notice board on No Name Street and was involved in a number of local organisations over the years, raising funds for a whole range of those organisations. Just wanted to mention there's a service to celebrate Jan's life at the Church of St. Peter's and St. Paul at Worth on Wednesday the 4th of March at 12 noon. Should any councillor want to pay their respects to Jan, I will be attending there to represent the Town Council. We will be holding the annual thank you event for volunteers and community champions here in McGibbons Hall on Friday the 27th of March. Again, it would be nice to see some of our councillors there to celebrate the efforts of others, and some of the councillors who are going to be invited as volunteers in other lives. So, but anybody who's not directly invited, there's an open door for councillors to be involved. And then finally, later in the agenda, we have 3 items that have been listed for consideration as confidential items. I just want to say that 2 of these have moved on since they were originally issued by the town clerk, and that's agenda item 18 and 20. They've subsequently been reconsidered due to a couple of elements which I'll cover when we get to that point, but we will take a vote on whether they remain within confidence or whether we were happy to do them in public. So we'll come to those later. Thank you very much. Apologies for absences.
Yes, we've got apologies from Councillor Breen, personal equipment. Councillor Carter is unwell. Councillor Mallet and Ungerson hope to be with us shortly, but they're not here yet. They've got other meetings.
Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 3, declarations of interest. This is to receive any declarations of disposable pecuniary interests from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda. Do we have any?
As a trustee of the Sandwich Heritage Harbour Trust, I will not take part in the item on the fishing game, and I will not vote on that.
Thank you.
And I think the same applies to Councillor Franklin as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Any others? No. Okay. Moving on to agenda item 4, we have minutes of the last meeting. So we've been asked to approve the minutes of the full council meeting of the Town Council, which was held on the 26th of January, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere in the agenda. Does anybody have any comments? Councillor Marie?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one for me. In the STC 126.1, it says, Chair's opening remarks, Councillor attended the funeral of Mayor Paul Watts. It's Mayor Jeremy Watts, and that's the only title I can see.
Thank you. Any other comments? And if not, somebody had to propose that we accept those minutes. Councillor Rickley and seconding Councillor Marie, we'll take a vote on those. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, so the second part of this is attachment 4B. We've been asked to receive the updated action log. There were only a couple that I wanted to flag up, but I just wanted to ask, first of all, we have an action against Councillor Morehouse regards Lynn Wright discussing the parking strategy. Has that now lapsed as such? Because fantastic, you'll pick that up later on. Thank you very much. Then I was going to just mention action number 11, but Councillor Evans has actually sent apologies for this evening, but he has provided a written report, hasn't he? So I'll deal with him separately regards to block drains, because he didn't actually meet up with me from the previous meeting, which he said he would do. Councillor Marie.
I see a few completed ones there. Is it a good idea to take them off?
We can.
What I normally do is as we go through the month, I
Yeah.
leave them completed and shaded in, so you can see the ones that have been done this month, but
Brilliant.
next month, those completed ones will be gone.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Sorry, so we're happy to propose that we receive the action log. Councillor Morehouse and Councillor Wiles seconded, and we could vote on that. And that's unanimous as well, thank you. Yes, you signed it. Okay, just bear with me.
I think we're double-sided.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that.
Thank you. Okay, move on to agenda item 5, and that's financial information. We have, as attachment 5A, to receive and note the budget variance reports for the year to the 30th of December 2025. These were reviewed at the meeting of the Finance and General Purposes Committee on the 18th of February. Are there any comments on those? If not, have to propose to vote.
Second.
Seconded. And can you vote on that? Councillor Lee, you going to vote? Thank you, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then we're looking for nominations for 2 activities. Firstly, to confirm nomination of 2 signatories to authorise mid-February payment schedule on Bankline. For those of us that can do it, does anybody have to put their step forward? Councillor Franklin will be 1. I will be number 2 then. Okay, that's that. And secondly, to confirm nomination of 2 signatories to authorise end of February payment schedules on Bankline. I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do it. So somebody have to propose that it's myself and Councillor Franklin. So Councillor Marie has done that, and then Councillor Morehouse has seconded. We vote on that, and that's unanimous as well. Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, you'll be glad to know we can take our robes off. Once we leave the room.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, item C on that.
Oh, is it? So apologies. Is there another one?
That's why I ain't stood up yet.
Oh, no, we voted on both of those. Okay.
All rise in the council chamber.
That's the last meeting. I don't know if on the history society has but I said, I'll send that to you. You live on the town guide. I still need to be a member.
Yeah, okay.
Right, I'll send it to you. Okay, no problem. What we do with these? We take one next door. Thanks. Where have they all gone? All disappeared.
Our council, we actually had one, two, we not even call it. But to be fair, then, it needs
Did you? For some reason,
Sorry? I don't know where it was in the documents. I thought it was in the minutes. What to, the decision to meet 10 times. I think it's in the next section, I think, after finance, I think.
All rise for the chamber, please.
Non-confidential.
Okay, please take a seat. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6. This is public participation, 20-minute sessions set aside for members of the public to make representations of the meeting in respect to the business on the agenda and other matters if time permits. Do we have any requests?
We've got one.
From the council.
the Alcazine.
That's okay.
Okay, so 5 minutes, I'll start timing. Christina,
Good evening.
fire away.
I'm addressing you tonight largely in relation to the risk register, but first I'd like to ask some questions about the community governance review. One, the electorate estimate for 2031 is based on both the percentage uplift that is the same as in the previous 5 years, plus a planned increase in the number of available dwellings. Is that double counting? Two, the new dwellings number for the North Ward of 211 appears to include 118 on Discovery Park, but there's no mention of the Willowbank construction phasing towards 303 homes, as Willowbank being included in the numbers. Three, might there be a case of creating a third ward for Sandwich by 2031 for residents residing north of the river who might have different interests to the residents in the conservation area? Moving on to the risk register, on items with, this is numbers within the risk register. Number 8, council records, IT backup. The IT policy appears to exclude backups for the YouTube videos. The our device recently failed to record half an hour of a committee meeting during a live stream, and the same half hour is missing from the YouTube video available for catch-up viewing. Will STC consider video backups? 12, staff training and support. Amidst to mention Silka training and CPD hours for the town clerk and potentially the assistant town clerk. I mention the assistant town clerk in particular because the previous incumbent was in training and used to clerk most committee meetings, which might be something to consider in relation to the concern expressed in agenda item 11 about the cost of the town clerk's overtime hours in work-life balance. Number 22, online banking payments. I listened to the debate about bank signatories at the last finance meeting and was left wondering, do STC bank signatories perform any sample testing of invoices prior to releasing payments? And if not, might that be an internal control worth considering, given it is standard practice in many organisations? 34, data protection publication scheme is incomplete. We were told it would include links to relevant documents, but instead it just states website or hard copy, and performing searches on the website does not always deliver a result. The previous publication scheme on the old website was fully populated with links, but we lost that when STC moved to the new provider. 34, data protection IT policy includes backups and retention policy, but appears to be silent on those points with regard to OWL videos. Further, concerning filming members of the public, it is my understanding that explicit informed consent must be obtained. The previous town clerk shaded out the public gallery when setting up the OWL. That practice has been discontinued, so I'd recommend some thought be given as to how STC wishes to proceed on this matter. 34, data protection, breaches of GDPR. Last month, the gender attachments marked confidential were published to the STC website. I advised a couple of councillors that I had seen the file, which had downloaded automatically to my device when I opened it. Given the reports were treated as confidential due to containing personal data, the assumption must be there was a GDPR breach. So I'm confused. What does that mean in terms of copies already downloaded and potentially shared by members of the public? 36, minutes agenda statutory documents. There appears to be some lack of clarity regarding the criteria for confidentiality and the publication of agenda documents. The Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960 stipulates the requirement for agendas to be published with a minimum of 3 clear days' notice and adds, with the exception of confidential items, and I quote, the agenda for the meeting as supplied to members of the body must also be published electronically in advance of the meeting, together with such further statements or particulars, if any, as are necessary to indicate the nature of the items included. So just a header isn't enough. Therefore, given that I was advised this morning that items 18 and 20 are likely to be deliberated in public rather than under confidential matters, it's my understanding that attachments 18 and 20 should not be deliberated or decided upon because those reports were not posted to the website at all, let alone with a minimum notice period. 37, committees working parties taking decisions inappropriately, states clear terms of reference issued for committees and working parties. However, I cannot find the terms of reference for working groups on the STC website, despite it being referenced both in standing orders and committee terms of reference. And I have not been able to find any evidence of terms of reference or membership being agreed for the working group meeting on the Mayor's 800th anniversary, which was referenced in the application submitted to the budget setting process in November as having agreed that it's made decisions on estimates of their budget requirements. And 38, last time, to meeting location and accessibility states the council chamber may be accessed via the jury room, yet it's my understanding the jury room is often out of bounds. This issue has been raised by councillors previously, so I'm surprised it doesn't appear to have an open action against it. Thank you very much.
Are you happy to leave that?
Yes, you can have that.
So in terms of the community governance review, obviously you're entitled to make comments yourself as a council will, so I'll leave that one aside. But in terms of the detail that you've raised, the town clerk can look at those against a risk log and we can obviously review that at the next review stage. Okay.
I'll leave that with you.
Good evening. No, sorry, that's fine. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, moving on to agenda item 7, verbal report from our Dover District councillors. On the basis we've got one of them here this evening. Councillor Morehouse, would you like to give us an update?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the town team meeting this morning and found out that the sprucer that was employed, the contract has come to an end. The sprucer hasn't been able to do as much work as anticipated because of the weather, and I think they are looking at perhaps reintroducing at a later stage when the weather improves. On the subject of the weather, the two things I've been bringing up a few times recently is the road markings by Motor that access the co-op car park, and also Councillor Wiles alerted me to some double yellow line faded in St George's Road, and again the work it is scheduled, but it can't take place at the moment because of the amount of rain that we've had recently. Right. I sent an email to Sandwich Town councillors on the 28th of January, providing information on the parking charges that come into force on the 1st of April. The headlines are the charge for 1 hour remaining the same at £1.80, along with no change to the 30-minute charge, which remains at £90. This is also the minimum charge, £90. Charges for 2 hours or more will increase from £1.80 per hour to £2 per hour. With respect to the car parks at Gaze and Salts and the Quay, the maximum stay has changed from £10.80 for 5 to 10 hours to £13.80 for 7 to 10 hours. The other significant change is the maximum length of stay in the Guildhall car park will be reduced from 5 to 10 hours to just 3 hours. And you mentioned Councillor Wright, who's the portfolio holder. At the last full Dover District Council meeting held on Wednesday, 28th of January, I did ask why the Cabinet had completely ignored the recommendation of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and all I got back was the usual party political statistics about how many decisions made by the previous council, a Cabinet, not following recommendations from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I was asked by this planning committee, Sandwich Town Council Planning Committee, if there are any grounds for appeal on planning application 25/00665, which is the land on the northeast side of Deal Road, Sandwich, considering that the Dover District Local Plan SAP 21, land adjacent to Sandwich Technology School, was for housing only and did not include a care home. The response from DDC is, this application was discussed at the Planning Committee meeting in October, where members resolved to grant outline planning permission in line with the recommendation. The committee report discussed relevant material considerations and the principle of development. Since the meeting, works have been progressing in the background on the Section 106 legal agreement, which is currently being drafted and amended, following which the decision notice will be issued. There is no third-party right of appeal, so a judicial review would be the process by which to challenge any granted permission. If you, as Sandwich Town Council, decision would be legally flawed. It would be for Sandwich Town Council to obtain their own legal advice on the likely prospects of that being successful. Moving on, I've been contacted by a member of the public expressing concern about a tree felling on the Bulwark in Sandwich. What appeared to be perfectly healthy trees that were situated adjacent to the boundary fence of the salutation were recently felled, and their location was on the opposite side of where the tennis courts are situated. And at the Sandwich Town Council meeting held 4 weeks ago, it was mentioned that it'd be greatly appreciated if Sandwich Town Council could be advised in advance of any work of this nature. So the response I've had is that Sandwich Tennis Club applied for planning permission to replace the existing tennis courts on the 15th of April 2025 with new paddle courts on the same footprint. And this was granted on the 17th of June 2025. The application site boundary included the trees, but did not propose to remove or carry out any works to them. As such, planning colleagues did not consider the proposal to present any threat to the trees. Subsequently, an application for works to trees in the conservation area was received on the 26th of September 2025 from Sandwich Tennis Club. This proposed to fell one tree and prune branches to another. The application stated that works were being sought due to root damage to the tennis court and debris from leaves. The Parks, Open Spaces and Countryside Department at DDC advised that when applications for works to trees in the conservation area is applied for, the council has 6 weeks in which to either raise an objection, choose not to raise an objection, or make a tree preservation order to prevent the works from going ahead. The decision was made to raise no objection based on the evidence submitted. This contradicts, because the question being asked is about the trees adjacent to the salutation, not the trees by the tennis court. So I've asked for further clarification on this, because what they've given me is a report on the trees
Yeah, I know.
applicable to the tennis court.
Cut the wrong ones down,
There was a question asked, I think it was at the last meeting, regarding if Sandwich Town Council can be made aware in the future of applications relating to works to trees in a conservation area. And their response is such planning applications are shared within the weekly planning list. And this includes the application number and the proposal. DDC state that whilst we do not publicise details relating to individual applications of the nature, and we do not enter into discussions regarding the merits of specific applications, if the Town Council believes that a TPO may be appropriate, please contact us so that we can take that into consideration. Moving on now to an erroneous Polders Road sign which was placed on the junction with the dirt track on Winsborough Road that leads to the Scout Hut. This is an unsurfaced access road maintained by the 3 properties on a particular postcode to which it affords access. It's not part of Polders Road, nor should it in any way encourage motor vehicles to try and connect to Polders Road. Motorists might consider it as a thoroughfare, but beyond the 3 properties mentioned, the dirt track is a restricted byway and privately owned by the farmer. No motor vehicles should be using it except for access only. So subsequently, I arranged for Keith Watson, who's the Principal Design Services Officer at DDC, to meet with one of the residents affected. A few options were discussed, and other residents, as well as the landowner, are currently being consulted to establish a solution. And finally, with regard to the footbridge, the new footbridge that links St George's Road with Knight Rider Street, I have asked DDC if they could give me full details on their future inspection and maintenance schedule for that bridge. Because too often we see new work being done and it's not maintained. And then Kelsurprise, after a few years, it's falling into a state of decay again. And we are back to spending large capital sums of money to replace something that should be maintained. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millhouse. Just on the point regards the trees at Bulwark, I've shared with you this afternoon a report that I obtained from July of last year. And now that I've listened to what you've said this evening, I think the trees almost certainly were within a separate piece of survey work that was undertaken by DDC, and they were deemed as unhealthy and had to be removed. You've got the report, it identifies visually which trees were to be taken out, so you can check to see if it's those ones.
Yes, and on from that, the 2 trees that I mentioned that are adjacent to this fencing on the sanitation, if you then go up to the Grass Creek area, one of the trees there, the 2 trees that stand on the level with the Grass Creek, one of them has been quite savagely pollarded, so it's another one.
Yes,
up,
there was
as well as the condition of the space between the play area and the grass creek, because of the heavy rainfall, that when it comes to the event, the medieval event that's going to be held in June, that land may not be fit for purpose for hire, but DDC will charge the full amount for the hire of the land, when only half of it is fit for use.
Okay, so there's about half a dozen trees that were within the survey, so the pollarded tree might also, so if you have a look through that, you might get the answer from that. Any questions of Councillor Millhouse at all before we move on?
Right. Am I correct in thinking that there's a limit of 3 hours for people who park in the Guildhall car park?
Yeah.
I would like to suggest that that's not very satisfactory. I mean, if people come to Sandwich, say to have lunch, and then want to do a bit of shopping, they might well want to park their car in the Guildhall car park for longer than 3 hours. And as regards to the bridge, I've had a look at the bridge, and it looked to me as though the wood hasn't been treated with anything.
It might be tannalised,
Right.
in which case it wouldn't be obviously treated.
Okay. Thank you.
I was just going to say about the little lane at Woodford Road. I didn't realise it was owned by the farmer. I know it's a cart track basically, but we recently gave planning permission for 2 properties on there. I mean, the only access is up that cart track. So that seems a little bit of a funny area really, isn't it? And so it's,
The residents and the officers are working together to find a solution.
yeah, and some other people got rear access to the gardens on Woodness
Yeah.
Road there, haven't they? Yeah, so, well, only resolved right because it's a, well, I have noticed when there have been roadworks in Woodnesborough Road, people have come down from Woodnesborough and actually cut through there as well. So it is nice to make it private road.
So in terms of back to Councillor Fortescue's comments regards the parking, we have made representations on a number of occasions, both me personally with the leader and also Councillor Wright as well. I don't know if you were involved in that meeting, you might have been, but sorry, Councillor Mallet certainly was. And we've challenged, there was also an opportunity through the strategy review to challenge, and we did that in writing. The horse has bolted, unfortunately. We are again tonight looking at the change in terms of the actual notice on it, and we can play the comments in again, but it's been through all the levels within Dover District Council and they have accepted the change. We pointed out many times about 3 hours and the impact it would have on people visiting the town as tourists, but also on the ability to shop as well, and we lost the argument.
When I was given the statistics as a response to my initial question, my comeback on that was to ask about an impact assessment, which I'm assured that they will do, but no doubt it will be skewed in favour of whatever the decision is, because none of the two political parties at Dover like to admit that they might have got it wrong.
It's just to clarify, the 3 hours in the car park, is that 3 hours then you have to move, or 3 hours and then you pay the full daily rate?
3 hours and you have to move.
Yeah, it's a limit.
There's probably no return within 2 hours.
On the day, maybe on the day. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Yeah.
But how does that work with, for example, somebody who is running a stall on the market?
Yeah, well, they expect, sorry to come back on this and elongate it, but the expectation is that there is not enough spaces within the town to park, and the solution, and we did challenge it, for the Dover District Council have come up with is, well, therefore we make people stay shorter times, therefore you get churn. Okay, so, yeah. Thank you. So moving on to agenda item 8, Councillor Evans has sent apologies for this evening, but he has provided a written report, and that'll be circulated to.
Read it for not very long, do you?
Could read it out, yes. Go on.
KCC monthly report, February to March. The KCC budget was passed without any real opposition to proposals. This means the first rise under the maximum in the last 12 years. I would like to add that KCC staff will be getting a 3.8 pay rise to match the cost of living. Staff who are closer to the minimum pay threshold will be getting slightly more. I would like to point out that this pay rise is more lucrative than that being offered to the NHS, which is 3.3. SEND special needs funding provision is to be announced by the government this week. I will keep you updated how this will affect local schools and children. State of the roads, only emergency potholes will be patched until the new budget in April, after which bigger road laying projects will be announced. We have an explosion of potholes since Christmas and are presently concentrating on these. KCC social care budget has now been brought under control. We're currently looking at more projects to get some of this back in-house, which will give us better control on costs. I will ask the questions again for you on what the plans are for the Wayfarer site on St Bart's Road. Yours sincerely, Councillor Peter Evans.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, just want to make a comment. Regarding the potholes, not a lot of people know this, and I've found it out. You can, if anyone hits a pothole, it damages your vehicle, bursts your tyre, or damages the wheel itself, you are legally entitled to claim against Kent County Council. It takes a long time. You can do it, just making it out for the video as well.
Yeah.
You can claim against KCC, and they will slowly pay for the damage against the
As long as you provide enough evidence.
Yeah, exactly. The photos, time and dates, etc., etc.
Thank you. Councillor Moorhouse?
Yes, referring to that actually, I noted, I did some research on this, but there's a section 58 defence that KCC can use, and it can legally reject claims if they prove they have a reasonable system of inspection and repair, which they often refer to, which is why 90% of the claims submitted to DDC fail.
Or KCC?
KCC, sorry, yeah.
No.
Yeah, 90%. And so there's only a 10% success rate.
Mhm.
And I actually recently, again, having spoken to Councillor Evans about this countless number of times, reported I've got a reference number, the stretch of road between St Mark's Road and the New Street level crossing. You now have to do like an obstacle course to get through the road to get across the level crossing, because it is beyond lawful.
Normality.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to agenda item 9, and that's a report from our local police representative. Have we had anything from?
No, not this time.
Not this time. Okay, if we could possibly contact her after the meeting, that'd be good. Okay, updates from councillors. I just wanted to mention one meeting that I attended with the town clerk. Met with DDC leader Kevin Mills on the 11th of February, and we had a number of items to discuss, but I just wanted to mention 2. The first was the freezing of a release of funding to progress the refurbishment of the Cattle Market toilets. There was an expectation for the last 2 years that the money would be made available, and then it was made available, and then it wasn't available. But using a toilet analogy, Kevin Mills was able to unblock the problem. And we all know we have the work underway as of last week. So it's brilliant, but it had come to a halt. And just by speaking to him, he did, to be fair to him, make a call to the right people in DDC, and we've now got the work underway. The second thing was I raised concerns about the base data used for the community governance review. And we'll discuss that later in this meeting. But what Kevin's intervention did was it opened up a dialogue I've been having with a DDC officer in electoral services who's leading on this consultation. And I'll cover that in a bit more detail when we get back to that agenda item. Okay, that's from me. Anybody else in terms of council back?
Yes, I went to the town team today for the very first time, because they seem to have had, past tense, an impression that we were going to just dump the tollage fund into the council funds. It took, yes, well, they've been misled, shall we say, by various sources. I think I disabused them of that, help from Councillor Anderson and Councillor Ripley and Councillor Morehouse to point out that this is not the situation. We will discuss it on Wednesday, but it took quite a long time. So clearly some malevolent actors have been at work.
Thank you, that's short and swift. Anybody else? If not, Councillor Murray.
Yeah, just quickly, Folk and Our quiz night this Friday evening at the Market Inn. If you haven't booked the tickets or booked your table, please do. There are limited spaces. I plan to be there, not taking part. I know there's a councillors' table that are going to be there Friday, so I'm going to come there and wind you up for the evening. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, if we could move on to the next agenda item, and that's agenda item 11 with attachment 11 relating to it. This is timetable and committee structure for 26-27. So we did discuss this at the last meeting. There were a couple of points that we wanted the town clerk to come back on, so we will cover that in a second. But I just want to mention a key context point to note. Is that under the next term, the next administrative term of the council, we are looking at the moment, a significant reduction in the number of councillors, and that certainly will put pressures on those that remain, some in the room, some new, I expect. So the key point I'm trying to make is what the town clerk has done is tried her best to look at how do we make sure that we are efficient as a council, but also don't put too much burden on the staff in terms of running the sort of model we've been running up to this point. And so some of the suggestions in here are taken account of that, because it does cost money and time to have a town clerk coming just for one meeting that starts at 6:30 on a separate night from other meetings. So some of the suggestions in here are trying to tackle that, and it would be good to have a sensible debate about whether these should be adopted or not. So, Town Clerk.
I mean, I think you've really said it. It's just, you know, we're at 52 with me, 52 evenings, with me reducing everything down as much as I possibly can, given the things that were agreed at the last meeting. So I then looked at piggybacking some of the meetings to reduce the load by 12, otherwise we'd be at 64 meetings. And each one of those meetings, there's a dead time between 5 and 6:30, as well as the meeting time. So it's very efficient use of council time. Given the length of the planning meeting, which is always pretty quick, very efficient, Councillor Blankton, we can reduce that dead time by then having another generally shorter meeting that starts at 7:30. So it was just, it's a way to try and manage time a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I know our town clerk's very efficient, but I think the town's very important, but is it possible that like, your assistant could take, say, the planning and some of the other little meetings, because the other clerk was, Chloe was taking the planning, wasn't she? And there is the gap, but because all committee meetings start at 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we could use the assistant town clerk more rather than the town clerk.
She hasn't expressed a great, she's very happy to cover.
Yeah.
She's not, I will ask her, but she's not very keen on doing it as a regular thing. She, as with the season gets busier, she'll be here a lot more at the weekends because she's got an events focus.
Mm.
So if we've got weddings and things like that, so she's quite likely to be here on Friday nights, Saturday nights.
Mm.
Personally, I think it would be better for the council functioning if we can get the meetings down to a sensible level, and then one person can clerk them with holiday cover.
Yeah.
And it's better for sort of continuity.
Also, then if we're going to do that, could all the meetings take place here? So sometimes they're taken down in the hub, aren't they? You know, the
Monk's Walk.
The Monk's Hall is in the hub, isn't there? Some other in the hub. So I think it'd be better
That's
to.
moved here now.
Yeah. So if all the meetings are here, it'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it has been moved. But the last two ones were here. Yeah.
So, Town Clerk, can I ask what are you seeking from the members this evening?
I'm seeking them to decide, really. And last time you went through the suggestions.
Yep.
There's a couple of tweaks that I've made. Obviously, things that have been decided have been decided. Things that have not been decided are in yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Are you happy to go with that? I mean, that the heritage and townscape and the HR really have to happen. The allotment, I'm sorry, I added that later. That should be in yellow as well. Speaking to the allotmenteers, I think that would be a good thing to put back in.
Yes.
But in order, therefore, to reduce the meeting load, the big question is: are councillors willing to, take on board this innovation of piggybacking some of the meetings? I know Faversham do it. It's not unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was just going to say, I know this is a thing that's happened in the last few years, but traditionally, I keep saying we used to have 2 meetings a month. So we had the town council meeting followed by the Tollbridge meeting, and then we all went into the mayor's parlour for a committee meeting. So it was all done on that one evening. We didn't have all different nights for different. Every meeting was done on a Monday. It was never done staggered through the week.
Mm-hmm.
But whereas we've gone on to all these different committees, suddenly it's increased the town clerk's time.
Yeah.
So I think I would prefer if we went back to 2 meetings a month, town council, Tollbridge, and a committee meeting. They just save a lot of time as well.
Councillor Rickman.
Right, 2 points. The first one is piggybacking. You've mentioned planning followed by Monk's Walk, and planning followed by museum and archives.
And HR.
Yeah, no, I'm not interested in that one because I'm not on the HR committee, but I am on planning and Monk's Walk and museum and archives. So
Yeah.
that wouldn't work at all for some of us where we have, joint commitments. Yeah.
Why not? I don't understand that correctly.
Well, if you're having planning and Monk's Wall and then planning and museum and are you talking
One
about
after the other,
staggered?
yes, there's
Yes,
staggered.
One
okay.
after the other.
So planning will start at 6:30,
Yeah.
which is normally done in between half an hour, 45
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah, for sure.
Then there'll be a 15-minute pause, and then
Yeah.
at 6:30, at 7:30, we would then go
Okay.
into museum marker.
Okay.
And that would just mean that it is a longer night those nights,
Yeah,
but
no,
it's
that's
less.
not a problem. I was just concerned that you might have things, planning and museum and archives and possibly something else added on as well.
Yeah.
No, but it's not, it's just
No.
2 at a time. Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
The other thing was, did we talk about at some stage putting planning in with heritage and townscape?
Yeah,
We did, but we didn't accept that.
Okay.
Councillor Pennington.
Thank you. Just a quick question about piggybacking. If you're involved in the second meeting but not the first, how do you know when to arrive? I know the planning sometimes
7:30.
can be
So
very
like
short
7:30.
or very long.
7:30.
The meeting would start at 7:30.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's 7:30 regardless.
Yeah. Okay,
Heritage and townscape.
Councillor Arms.
I think we really do need to consider the impact on the town clerk of all these meetings.
Mhm.
I know at the last meeting, we rejected combining planning and heritage.
Yeah.
But the vote on that was rather suspect, shall I say. And I really think it's something we should reconsider because those two are a natural fit as far as I'm concerned.
We can't the points noted, but we can't reconsider. We did vote and it was a majority vote by one. Councillor Marie.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. A couple of things. So, is it dead certain that we're going to lose 4 councillors from the council?
No, we'll come on to that.
Because the other thing I'm concerned about is it's about the quorum, because we've been on the knife edge a few times, and my biggest bugbear, I said it last month as well, is councillors not attending when they should be attending, especially when they're chairs to committees. So I do feel that the quorum needs to be looked at if that's the case of losing 4 councillors. But I will be supporting keeping the 16 instead of the 12.
If there's no other comments, I'd like to propose that we do accept what we've got in front of us, because I think the thing is, if you have to do 2 meetings and they're on the same night, that means you've got a free night elsewhere. If you know the second meeting starts at 7:30 and it won't be brought forward, then you just turn up at 7:30. So I think it covers all bases, but what it does do, it manages down a bit of the time that the town clerk has to commit. So I'm happy to propose to Councillor Morehouse seconded. Within the detail though, H&T would go quarterly as well, which we have talked about before, so I'm hoping there's acceptance of that as well. And HR already is quarterly. Okay, so we're happy to vote on that. And that's unanimous as well. Thank you. Okay. I think this is now the update on Fishergate, attachment 12 in the pack, and it's agenda item 12. So I think this is probably why Julian has stayed this evening. I'm sure it's not out of desire to be in the council meeting.
Oh, it's great to see you, Will.
Nice to see you, Julian.
Far away, Julian.
Yes, thank you. It's obviously an update on Fishergate, just to get an update on the works and a sort of overview of what we've discovered so far. Want to run through briefly the grant funding process, because I've been approached by a couple of people talking about it and they think it should be happening a lot quicker than it is. But there's a process that we need to follow, and we've got to get everything right in stages as we go through. I have a chat obviously regarding talking about funding, but to increase the opportunity of funding, we really need to be looking at obviously borrowing items from the attic here, and also there will be some involvement with SDBF Museum as well, which I'll come on to. Quick recap of what was agreed last year on Fishergate, and then obviously I'm going to have a chat about the the ongoing discussions, I should say, with Sandwich Heritage Harbour Trust. So we'll start obviously with the discoveries. I think some of you are aware of the fact that we found a stained glass window hidden up in a wall that we've removed, and that's now sitting in the collection store, it's called, isn't it? Collection store.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's in there, and we're continually working in there. Actually, it's progressed since these photographs. So we're there once or twice a week, removing the coverings and revealing the original fabric. So it's been actually, it's a very interesting project. You're all invited to come along, not at once, but all invited to come along and have a look at what we're doing in there. So we're taking the photographs, we're discovering things as we're going along. I'm in regular contact with Historic England, who, obviously on a regular basis. And then we come on to the sort of the stages of this funding process. So I need to get surveys done. I need to obviously get the costing, because I'm looking to go for, to get the whole lot through grant funding, the whole package. So, to get that, obviously, we need detailed costs for the capital work. So that's my next stage. Once everything's ripped out and everything's cleared out, then we go into the grant funding process. I'm in regular contact with the National Lottery Heritage Fund. I know what they need from me. They've also asked for other, questions regarding the maritime objects. What are we going to be displaying? What the Sandwich Heritage Harbour Trust, what experience do they have in sort of delivering museums, and about the visitor engagement and sort of learning programmes. So that's all taking place. The involvement in the SDBF Museum, to be able to get other items, we really need to be able to show that, that we've got some strength behind us as a new museum, as it were. So by partnering up with SDBF, we're going to have more chances of securing the grant funding. Without that, it's difficult. It's difficult enough anyway. If anyone's trying, this is not getting grant funding for, some new computers or, so this is major capital works against a lot of competition. So we've got to give ourselves every opportunity. Okay, you've got one chance at this. So we've got to get it right. So I'm looking to say some involvement with SDBF Museum, just to add a bit of strength behind the loans. We also be looking to engage with other people locally as well. So I know there have been a couple of discussions, I believe, that happened with the Medieval Centre, and perhaps, because obviously given the location there, it makes sense to be able to work between us. So there we are. So recapping back from last year, this ongoing Fishergate saga. We agreed, or you agreed, that's to say, that you looked at the different options. I think one of the founding or the major factor behind making the decision was a museum would have given the opportunity of actually getting the money to do the work. So that's what it actually, I think, it came down to. So we're supported by Historic England to do this work. We're going through the whole process at the moment. And I'm pleased that you made the decision to do a maritime museum. And then obviously my discussions with the Sandwich Heritage Harbour Trust. I mean, we've had a couple of meetings. I know that obviously they have regular meetings. And we've looked at all different options. We've looked at, possibly, what would it look like if they were going to lease the property? Well, leasing the property wouldn't actually help us if they leased it from us, because we need to have full control of the money that can come in. And the money that can come in is not the rent. The money that can come in is from donations, from selling the prints, from making this into something. So we've looked at all different options. We looked at perhaps a share agreement, but it's so difficult when we're looking to split the building to actually make it work for either of the parties. So my proposed operating and income model I've shown here. I've shown what we would be responsible for, what we would do with the income when it comes in, and obviously what Sandwich Heritage Harbour Trust responsibilities would be for, and their sort of commitment. And basically the arrangement ends up with the sort of asset stewardship and financial control coming under us, and the operational delivery and volunteer engagement coming through Sandwich Heritage Harbour Trust. And the rationale behind it, well, here it is. Income is protected. We've got to get income in, we've got to protect it. We won't get any money unless we show that we've got a long-term maintenance strategy. That is key to it. It won't go anywhere without that. That's what they're looking at. So what's that look like? Well, they want to know that we've got enough money to carry on. So in 20 years' time, people are not sitting here thinking what we're going to do, we've got to spend more money. So this is a one-off opportunity. So there we are. I've given you an indication, estimate of what it could cost STC to running. It's going to be about £7,500 a year. That doesn't include business rates. I'll be looking for obviously the Heritage Harbour Trust to take that on board because they should be exempt on that. And then I show what the income will be. And I've been, I never overdo things on income. I've proved that before, that if I say something, I'm going to be there or thereabouts on that side. So we've got the hiring with some space, £60 a week, donations only £40 a week. I mean, sure, we're going to be able to achieve that. And most importantly, the sales of prints and merchandise. I mean, this is going to be a commercial edge to it. This is what all museums, as far as I'm concerned, should be doing, which is earning money and paying for themselves. So we're going to be on that side. We've got enough. If we donate, if I can't prove these figures, and I've got to prove these figures to the obviously the heritage. I've got to, yeah. I mean, you can disagree with them. It's them that have to agree that those figures are right. So I've got to be able to show, obviously, to back that up. With them to get the money, because unless I can show that we're getting the income, we're not going to be able to get the money, because they need to know that we're going to be able to pay, not pay them back, but pay for the future work. Okay. So I was asked to look at a virtual office. I wish I hadn't. I mean, I'm sure in some areas, I've done it before actually in Canterbury, and it worked, but there's not going to be enough people to make it work. It's going to put too much pressure on everyone else. So on that side, a virtual office wouldn't work, but there certainly is an opportunity for a registered office address to be used. And we get some money back on that side. Now, I haven't allowed for that in my estimated income. I mean, to me, that's, whatever we get in addition to that would be a sort of a bonus. So I'm willing to take us, I've gone on a bit, willing to take any questions that you may have.
So, Julian, thank you for the very detailed report, and you've answered some of my questions. But we're going to be asked tonight to make a decision on the proposed operating and income model for Fishergate. So, opening up for questions. Councillor Anderson, I saw your hand first.
Yeah, thank you very much for your report, which I found really fascinating and very helpful. I have got some experience of making grant applications.
Yes.
And the National Heritage Lottery Fund is extremely competitive, and
Yes.
I imagine we'll be applying for enormous amounts of money. I mean, at least £1 million, presumably.
No.
Nothing like that?
No,
What sort
nothing
of-
like that. Between 150 and 200,000.
Okay. Well, I have to say that because I look regularly at what funding is available,
Yes.
I do come across other funders for heritage projects.
Yes.
And I would advise you to look at or register with an organisation called Kent For Community, for as a numeral, because they do their own, they put together a whole list. It comes about once a fortnight, I think, sometimes. And you have to be very selective, but I have noticed that there are funding bodies that are specifically about this kind of project. So I would advise you to have a look.
I appreciate that. And also, Historic England are going to assist with that. They won't put money directly in, they will recommend us to people as well. So thank you so much. I've made a note of that, and I'll look at their website.
And Councillor Mallet.
Your comment about the museum and that being part of the incentive to fund the Fishergate, we mustn't forget we have the first torpedo ever in the world.
Yes.
If we can push it on that.
Yes.
But I would advise, though, when it is accessed, if it's particularly heavy, can we call in the bomb disposal people? Because it might
I think that's on the list, the to-do list at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Wiles.
Do you think the Heritage Harbour Trust are likely to agree to the proposal?
We've looked at the three options, and that was the one. Actually, we looked at two options to start with. That was getting encouragement from that side. Yes.
So
Yeah.
If I may, I would say, and I think Councillor Franklin would agree with me, that yes, we are happy with this suggestion.
That's helpful, thank you. Councillor Pennington?
Thank you. Yes, I'd like to thank Julian for this report. I think it's very helpful. I just wanted to say that I'm particularly interested by the whole idea of selling prints and so on. I don't think Sandwich sells itself enough. I know people are working on this through the forum and so on, but it will be an interesting first step, I think, along the road of developing the servicing of the tourist industry, which is what it is.
Thank you very much, Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a very good report. The Fishergate's been empty long enough. It's been for a long, long time, but even before the previous administration, when myself and Councillor Franklin were around, that's when it was first emptied, wasn't it? Yeah, if the household will want to take it on, then by all means, I'm happy to propose it in principle. We'll get the funding. If the funding is not available, if the funding, we don't get the funding, then we have to come back to the table and discuss what we're going to do.
Yeah, we will do. Okay, so I just thank you for explaining about your conservative approach to income, but I just wanted to, because you answered some of my thoughts on that, but I just wanted to check the figures that you've put in there, is that net income as opposed to gross? So for example, for prints and merchandise, 4,000, is that gross or net? Net. Okay, that's right. Thank you very much. So we've been asked to decide that the proposed operating and income model for Fishgate determine whether Julian's proposed model will be acceptable in principle, subject to securing the necessary funding to deliver the museum project and subject to contract.
Opposed.
Councillor Morehouse and quick vote on that. That's unanimous as well. Thank you very much. Okay. Moving on to yes, local government reorganisation. We've been asked to receive a report on the consultation on Kent's local government reorganisation and consider the recommendations. And that is agenda item 13. Town Clerk, did you want to say anything on this?
Obviously, this local government reorganisation is coming down the tracks at us. Councillor Morehouse knows. Yeah, I mean, we have a window of consultation. We are not statutory consultees. However, it is a big change for everybody, and I think I would imagine that councillors would want to have their say. There are 4 or 5 different options. I included the little maps. I don't know if councillors have had an opportunity to read the business cases that are attached to the various different options, because without that, the maps are geographical pictures, really. And so it's very, I went through this process as an individual in order to work out how best to comment on it. The questions that are part of the consultation are at the end, questions that are in the consultation 1 to 9. Obviously, members will have different opinions as to which they think is the right model, but I think those differences can probably be captured in question number 9 using a written sort of summation for discussion in the text box.
Thank you. So I'm happy to start the bidding unless somebody else is really keen with their option. Councillor Morehouse, would you like to say something?
Yes, concerning the fact is that the Kent County Council's preference and Dover District Council's preference are very, very different. And I think in either case, we will become weaker. And therefore, I believe that reducing the amount of councillors, which possibly could have been a sensible approach where we're retaining the existing local government model. But because of this, that we become weaker, and we will. Centralisation always weakens, doesn't strengthen at all, in spite of what is being sold to us by both of the political parties. But I would be in favour of retaining full 16 complement of 16 councillors at the moment. We're on the different.
Yeah, we're going to come to that. We're on the LGR model, and we'll talk about the number of councillors. So, Councillor Wiles?
Yeah, I've looked at all of this. My preference is option 4D, which is effectively East Kent incorporating bits of Swale and bits of Folkestone. I don't think the three, Canterbury, Dover and Thanet, are big enough. I think 4D is a good size, 523,000. And the key thing for me is geography. Joining up with Ashford, for me, it's just too remote. It's as bad as Maidstone. Whereas that East Kent, presumably the headquarters would be in Canterbury, and it's a much more cohesive and coherent local authority, and big enough to do the work that KCC currently does.
So we are all entitled to make our own comments as well. So online as part of the consultation. So I'll come up with a different bit. Mine was for 4B, and I had reasons around that, mainly because it ensures the size of the unitary councils are at a sensible scale rather than too large. It also would mean that we are part of a unitary council that retains our local identity. We already have strong links into Thanet and into Canterbury, so it felt to me like a better model. We haven't got those links into Medway as such, but horses for courses, you make your choices. So, Councillor Moorhouse?
The DDC preference was 4B for that very reason. Retaining existing geographical boundaries.
I agree with Councillor Wiles because Ashford's got a lot of problems. And this is how I am when we had this 50 years ago. I mean, I'm not the only one that was here 50 years ago. But we had our own borough council, didn't we? And the first thing done, the thing that worries me is things like planning, because they're not going to worry about us. Because I don't think we have any thing on planning applicable. We might forget, I don't think they even consider us for planning, consultants at all. They're talking about the planning things are just related to their officers, aren't they? And that really, really scares me. And I don't think bigger is always best. I mean, I like the back borough council myself, but I don't like it at all.
Any other comments? So we have an option. So we're a couple of more than a couple. A few decisions to consider. So first of all, we're invited to receive a report. So I think we can do that. So if somebody happy to vote that Councillor Marie and Councillor Moorhouse could vote that we receive a report. Okay. Secondly, we're asked to, I'll come back to the second one. The second one is we're invited to comment personally on the report outside of the meeting. Well, I think that's a given. I don't think we need to propose or accept that because we can all make our own choice on that. So the third one. Members are invited to choose their favourite option from the options available. If we're able to do that, then that's great. If we're not, then we're not going to be able to say.
I propose option 4B.
4B. I'm happy to second that. So 4B is the smaller of the two. Councillor Wiles was suggesting 4D. 4B is Canterbury, Thanet and Dover.
That's what I relayed in a previous DDC verbal update. We had voted for that at DDC.
So can I take that to a vote? And if it fails, then we can possibly take a proposal on 4D. So for 4B, Councillor Moorhouse is proposing. I'm happy to second it. If we're happy to vote on that.
I'm going to abstain because I haven't done the reading.
Okay.
It's my second.
So I think that is a majority vote. We have 4 abstentions, 1 against, and the remainder are for it. And then the final thing is to reflect on the responses to the consultation questions for the favourite option. Do you think you've got enough? I mean, I've given a couple of reasons myself.
I've got maintain existing boundaries, geographical boundaries, but maintaining a suitable size.
Yes, so it ensures, so what I've noted, ensures the size of unitary councils are a sensible scale. It also means we will be part of the unitary council that retains our local identity because we already have strong links with Thanet and also with Canterbury.
the district boundaries, and also when we look at the economic division of Kent, then it makes sense to have Canterbury, Thanet and Dover lumped in together.
So there's two more there, economic division and parliamentary boundaries. Okay, you happy with that?
Just going to say a little thing.
Yep.
50 years ago, Sandwich Borough Council had the best social housing building in England because the size of the town and the new estates of St Bart's, we did fantastically well. And once we got into Dover, they didn't do a lot of council social building, did they? In this area at all. They tried to say it's too expensive.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, the trouble is with this, that all the local authorities are all over the place. You know, some support one, some support another. So making this decision is good.
It's difficult.
The only option which has more than 4 supporters is 3A.
And what I would say is that ultimately it will be a central government decision, so they'll take in all the information, and as Councillor Miles quite rightly says, there is a real mixed bag of opinions on this. So you would suspect that maybe central government will just make its view from top down.
Toss a coin.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Agenda item 14, community governance review. I think this is more relevant and more impactful for us. So I just wanted to make some comments at the outset before I open it up to observations from members. So the key consideration for us is that the structure of Sandwich Town Council remains robust, representative and also able to meet local challenges. The consultation itself only has 2 key questions for us to answer, and that is, 1, should the number of councillors on the above named town parish council be changed, i.e. Sandwich? 2, please state what the proposed number of councillors of this council should be and the reason for the proposal, or please give you a reasoning as to why the number of councillors on this council should remain unchanged. So it's very, very low-fi in terms of how they're wanting input to this. So we will have 2 questions to answer. So I've got a few notes, sorry, just to set in the context. So the proposal made is for the number of councillors to reduce from the current 16 to 12 for the next election. This is based on a projection of an estimated electorate by 2031. To retain 16 councillors, we would need to have an electorate of around 9,000. The underpinning number of new dwellings was obviously wrong when I looked at it, and I raised this with the DDC officer from Electoral Services leading the consultation. The initial response was that the original figures were based on the monitoring return issued by planning in late November 2025. These showed new dwellings of 11 for the North Ward and 12 for the South Ward, if I remember correctly. The reason I can't prove it is because every time they've changed it, you go onto the portal and it's got different figures. So, but my memory is certainly right that they were round about 11 and 12 for each of the 2 wards. Because of my contact, a later monitoring return from DDC planning was used, and the number of dwellings was increased to 211 for the North Ward and 21 for the South Ward. However, I was well aware that Discovery Park somehow didn't feature in that, and I had in my mind there was about 500 properties to be built there. I contacted the Electoral Services officer, and they said, well, it had planning in 2018 and that's now lapsed. So what I did was I phoned up the design and the design company for the development, and they gave me their information direct to me, and I fed that across to DDC Electoral Services, and they revised the numbers yet again. So in the next 5 years, they will be building 118. That's what they're working on. The 500 will be delivered in the next 10 years, but this is for a window to 2031. So that has now resulted in the figures being updated a second time, and we now show 329 new dwellings for Sandwich North, but still 21 for Sandwich South. However, their original recommendation was for 7 councillors for Sandwich North and 6 for Sandwich South. and they've now revised it down to 6 and 6. So I'm really confused about all that's happening, but it's all behind closed doors to some extent. However, my personal view, and this is where I'll play my view and then we'll take others' views, I don't think we can achieve 16. We are nowhere near 9,000 electors. And if we try and say it should be 16, I think that might fall by the way, but we may vote to go with that. For me, the important things are parity between the two wards, the complexity of Sandwich Town Council, avoiding an increase in workload pressures on councillors, reducing it to 6 councillors per ward results in almost a doubling of electors for each of us to service. It's also about improving community engagement. Where currently the figure is, in terms of the banding, it's 4,400 for 12, 6,500 for 14. Sorry, for 16. Sorry, 14. But we're at 5,306 electors at the next point at which to do this review. So we've got more than 1,000 electors above the lower band. And that's why I think we should be arguing for 14 rather than 12. Also, helpfully played in by Councillor Morehouse is the impact of the local government review and how that will probably put more responsibilities on a parish council. So that's my context, and I'll take other comments from people. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Me and you have had personal discussions regarding this a few times. My opinion would be is to keep the full 16, and there's a few reasons for it. One, obviously, the history that we have in the town. We've all got our own skill sets regarding the town, what we do. We're trustees, all 16 of us are trustees or representations for groups and stuff, and we help each group in our own unique way. What I don't like, and I've seen it a few times, is a former town councillor who's now district councillor going around putting stuff on social media saying that he supports the removal of a few councillors within the town council. Dead against that, and I have argued the case with that. I'm exactly the same with what Councillor Morehouse has said. We need to keep 16. We are a unique council. We have got many assets. We run in 2 charities. We can't even call it. Sometimes we are, as I said earlier on an iPad regarding committee and also on council meetings when councillors decide or councillors are busy or they have prior engagements. And we've got that a few times. And if we do, we have to look at the core and lowering the core again. But also, that brings another headache in itself because of what happened a few years ago. So, my opinion would be to keep the 16, and I will fight to keep the 16 councillors within the Sandwich Town Council.
Following on from that, what they're looking at in terms of figures and representation is based upon a bog standard parish council. Yeah. We are not a bog standard parish council because of these 2 charities, the Tollbridge Fund and the Maddox bequest. So I therefore support what Councillor Murray is saying. We should retain the 16, the full 16.
Councillor Black.
Well, I'm a bit sceptical that you're going to succeed with 16. I think 14 is a much more realistic figure. I am absolutely opposed to having 7 councillors in one ward and 6 in another. The South Ward has already been grossly underrepresented, not in terms, but in actual investment and everything else for decades by this council. Well, I'm not the group here now, but I think that is completely unacceptable. And the only way you can address that, I think, is to go to 7 and 7. It goes partly, not wholly, the way that my 2 colleagues have expressed already, but I think that's a much better option. And it gives us that little bit of, not surplus, but we have a more complicated council than most, as we all know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sandwich has always traditionally had 16 councillors. We always was 1 council, 16 councillors. But because of political pressure about 20 years ago, they decided to divide the town in half. And the unfortunate thing is they used the railway line. So I live on the wrong side of the tracks. There's no problem doing Sandwich South, which I thought was a terrible thing to say, using the railway line, which only built in the 1840s, but that's modern anyway. But I totally agree. The thing that worries me is the committees. You get people off it, you're not going to get core, even the town council might struggle. And I think the more councillors. Also, it means that each council, if they go down to 14, they have to take on more responsibility. And at the moment, I've got enough people phoning me up with that. So I'm for 16 traditional.
Councillor.
Thank you. Yes, I find myself in interesting position because when I chaired Westgate Council, I fought against the proposal to increase the number of councillors from 12 to 16. Having seen how this council operates, I do think a larger council is justified, as some councillors have argued. Having said that, I very much follow on from what Councillor Franklin has said. I must say, when I came here, I thought, well, what's the logic of this division between North and South? Shouldn't we all be supporting the town and seeing what's best for the town? And I have no idea what the logic for that division was. The second thing is, what is the regularity of this review? Will there be another review in a certain number of years? Because that would actually tie in with the discussion about the houses at Discovery Park, and maybe that's an avenue we could follow.
So this is for 5 years. It's a 5-year period to 2031. Just one more comment from me, because you've had a couple. If you do want, if it's
Just want to answer Councillor Pennington's question about why political gerrymandering. That's the reason why it was done.
Thank you.
So can I just play back a couple of observations? The data, the base data is from now. That's the reference point. So this isn't driven by Dover coming up with its own model. So, and when you look at the tables, to have 16 councillors, you need to have 9,000 electors. Now, there are all sorts of complexities which we're talking about here, and I recognise those. But I'd like to pick up on one point that's been made more than once. We've got charities. Well, actually, that is not a council responsibility. We are trustee or trustees in those charities, and I would argue that that will be dismissed as an argument. The complexity we've got from the charities is actually we're having to manage the finances between STC and STBF. That is an issue. But actually, the fact we've got two charities is not going to, I think, score us any points. So, and I'm more than happy to support 16, but I just feel worried that we will lose a fight by saying we're special, we're different, against 9,000 electors when we've only got 5,000. But it's a democracy, so if we want to propose that, we'll go to a vote on it.
Well, I was just going to say, with all the housing developments up along, the other, Sandwich North. Perhaps we should use the river as the boundary, not the railway line, because that's going to get massive up there, Willowbank, with the Discovery Park, and we're all going to be left behind. So I think perhaps we'll have to move the dividing line to the river, because at the moment it's ridiculous, the railway line. I think we should go back to 16 council or 14 and one council representing the whole area. But I think when it comes to elections, it makes it easier for the electoral, and it makes it.
But for this consultation, we've just got 2 questions we're allowed to answer. Final comment.
Just my final comment is quite concerning that they're bringing this in with the reorganisation as well. Because it's when that comes in. My apologies, it might be out of turn, but that's my comments, my opinions. This current central government couldn't run a booze up in a brewery personally, and when this comes in, I do feel that when this KCC gets split up, it's going to be a problem, and we need the full council with 16 councillors that know how to run this town if things start going pear-shaped regarding the local reorganisation. That's my opinion.
I think if it reduces to 14, the burden on each councillor is going to be huge.
100%.
The committees will have to completely restructure the committee system, reduce the number on each committee, reduce the quorum on each committee. I mean, my view is, like any negotiation, you ask for 16, and if you get 14, so be it.
And we can do that. Just an observation on caseload. if you actually look across all of the parish councils that are listed, some parish councils, individual councils have a caseload that is massively above ours, massively 3 times the number of residents. However, some are massively below, so there is no parity. And you can understand why this exercise needs to be done. It's about parity. But I think from what I hear a groundswell towards a 16. So if somebody's had to propose a 16, the arguments are here. We can put them both forward. Councillor Franklin has seconded, so if we go for a vote on 16, then we can decide if that gets carried or not. And I've lost my cards, which is probably telling me something. So that's carried, and what we can do is the arguments that we've discussed here, which I've also already noticed some in any case, we'll frame it around 16. And as you say, negotiations, you can go in where you want to end up, or you can go in where you want to stay. So
The danger is if you ask for 14, you land up with 12.
Yeah, looking at 12. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 15, and that's the Dover District Council off-street parking places. So this is the end of the process, I suppose, in terms of implementing the changes, and we have challenged and we have lost this one. However, it doesn't mean to say we shouldn't replay our unhappiness, and I did draft a suggested form of words, and unless we need to debate those, if somebody's had to propose that those words are acceptable, then we'll take those to Dover. So
Proposing.
second. Would you like to vote? That's our response. We're not happy, but it's going to happen.
Not grumpy.
Okay. Motoring on now. We're on to agenda item 16, review of procedures and policies. Town Clerk, you've got 3 policies here, which is IT, expenses and allowances policy, and risk register. You want to go through each of them one by one, but I'm expecting you're hoping that these are adopted this evening in line with...
Particularly the IT policy, that must be agreed really, otherwise we will have to have an EGM just to agree it, because it needs to be agreed by the end of March.
And I would say if we talk about that one, then we have had bites at this cherry already, and you've reflected some of those comments in here.
So the bits which are in yellow are amendments to reflect notes people have made.
Any comments, Councillor Marie?
Proposed acceptance.
Well, I just wanted to check, Councillor Knight, do you have a comment to make as one of our
I was just
IT?
about to propose acceptance.
So-
I wrote the extra bit, so.
Yeah, okay.
But I could put my name
What
on
you
it.
wrote,
Bring your own device.
So Councillor Mallett has seconded it because he was too slow. If you go forward, vote on it. Yeah, I think it's true. Okay. Councillor Gray, Councillor Morehouse, are you happy to accept the IT policy? I know you're distracted by your computers, so. Okay, so that one's carried. The next one, sorry, apologies, I've now lost my place, is the expense allowances policy. I've got a couple of small comments, but any comments from anybody on the expenses policy? Councillor Black.
I'm just a bit puzzled why then it is different from Dover expenses.
So my comment is linked to that, but I wanted to suggest we take that out.
Yes.
Because I think if any councillor is on business, even if they're only going 2 miles down the road, then they should be entitled, if they want to claim expenses for doing so. Yeah, I don't really see why that should be included.
Well, that's the last bullet point in.
Yeah.
I wonder if this crept it somehow
I
from
think-
our policy.
Yes, I think this,
It's policy from elsewhere.
Yeah.
sorry.
You went round.
Very carefully.
Any other comments on the expenses policy? If not, I'm happy to propose we accept it with that one change.
Second.
Councillor Morehouse seconded. And that's all accepted. Majority, sorry, unanimous. And then the final one is a risk register. Would you like to just talk about that?
The risk register, this is again something we need to have in place prior to the internal audit. I have had some comments from the mayor, members of the public have made comments that, are all part of this document, which is basically a working document, it's a moving document. So I will update it to reflect, what changes we can make, sort of actions that will help improve things. It is a live document basically, but we need to have a risk register that we have agreed, that is in place in time for the internal audit at the end of March.
So I'd like to move that we accept it, because the risk register should be a living document. In any case, it will be reviewed and it should go to finance and general purposes at least on a quarterly basis as we do refresh. I have to propose we accept the risk register. And Councillor Malice, I think I saw his card first. Second. Vote on that. And that's unanimous as well. Thank you. Okay. So moving on to potentially confidential matters, but what I wanted to do was actually move that 2 of these are actually dealt with in public, because we haven't issued papers with them, and we should table them for a later point. But I'll explain on one of those why it won't be relevant. So the first one, public disturbance and lockdown policy. It's not massively time critical. We can bring it back to the next meeting. So I would like to propose that we bring that to the next meeting, and somebody's happy to second that.
There's so many issues attached to this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous to even contemplate discussing security in a public forum. I'm sorry, but that's the reality of it. I've worked on a number of different industries, some with very high security issues. But basically, you want us to comply with the Terrorism Protection of Premises Act 2025, which requires us to assess security risk and implement safety measures for public venues. Now, quite frankly, you just do not discuss this kind of thing in public. Now, I did do some research on this. The kind of things that can normally be covered by confidential information. We know that things like personal information, contracts, and so on. But there's also another one, which is information which, given its nature, timing, and context, is such that a reasonable person would consider it to be confidential. Now, if security ain't confidential, I don't know what is. And finally, I did some more research. Can parish councils operate with security arrangements classified as confidential? Yes. The reasons for security arrangements may be considered confidential for several reasons. 1, public safety. Revealing specific safety measures could endanger individuals or property. 2, certain information is protected under laws governing public bodies such as Local Government Act. And 3, sensitive information, details about security protocols, which we want to discuss, personnel or strategies, are typically treated as sensitive and are not disclosed to the public. This is not the kind of thing that you discuss in public, and I'm very, very strong about this. I've worked in some pretty challenging environments, and I think this is very, very foolish to even contemplate putting it into the public domain. And I'm sorry, if we're not taking security seriously.
Okay, so I'd like to maybe invite, I don't know, Councillor Gray, if you've got a view on this, because previously we had a number of discussions around what was suitable for being in confidence and what was not. So I don't know, can you remind us, Councillor Gray?
Well, I would argue firstly, I would look at the report and its classification is public. Right? Now, maybe the writer of the report would need to consider that. But we have here a public report,
yeah.
And yet now we're saying it should be confidential.
Yeah.
I also think in terms of whether we discuss it tonight or later, I do have a point to make on that and on the next one,
yeah.
And that is that these reports have not been in front of the public for the required time, so therefore they should be adjourned. Both these items, 18 and 20, should be adjourned anyway, except there is, I know, a point on item 20 where it is fairly time critical. So
thank you. So what we've voted, Councillor Black, is to adjourn. Okay. What I would ask is because the report has been deemed as public by the
You
officer.
voted before you even allowed anyone to have a discussion.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't realise that.
I'm sorry, I had my hand up at the time and I object to that.
Yeah.
I think this is something that needs to be discussed. To push it down the road is not a very sensible approach. However,
we don't have choice to discuss something in this meeting that has not been published if we want to discuss it in public. So I'm not arguing about the merits of the report itself or its classification. What I'm saying is, if we were to move it into public, it would need to have been published. And that's where we are at the moment. And actually, the officer who has written it deems it to be in public. So I think there's a conversation between yourself and the officer between now and when the next meeting takes place to just satisfy either yourself or the officer that we're making the right decision. Okay? Thank you. Can we move on?
Can I just want to make a comment? So, regarding Councillor Black's comments, I'd like to be involved in that meeting as well, because I've worked within the police. I've worked in the police. There are some serious complex stuff regarding security and what's on a need-to-know basis. It's a need-to-know basis of regarding what the public need to know and what us as a council and what the officers need to know that the public doesn't need to know. It's all about safety and protecting ourselves and protecting the members of the public that enter this room.
Thank you, and I don't disagree. And what I'm not doing saying here this evening is this has to be discussed in public. What I'm saying is we need to adjourn it as it's been challenged that it should be in public, and I'm giving breathing space for the officer concerned and those councillors who feel it should be in confidence have the opportunity and the breathing space to do that. So that's what we voted for tonight, not to put it in public, nor to put it in confidence. That will happen next time. Okay. The second one that we'll go to is the first sandwich. Now, that was originally deemed as confidential by the originators of the product. I actually spoke to them recently, and they were happy for it to be discussed in public. But again, it hasn't been shared before the meeting. However, it was only a report for information. There are no decisions attached to it. It was the nature of the circumstance rather than what we were going to decide. And actually, it'll fall by the way by the time we next meet. So I would like to propose we just remove this from the agenda and we don't return with it because it'll be too late next time. Okay.
And I would, in these circumstances, I would second that.
So we're not going to give approval to the producer.
They are engaging with the mayor already on that matter, and that's fine. But we're not providing any financial advice. We haven't got any proposals from them, so we haven't got anything we can discuss tonight, even if we went into public.
All the councillors have received the paperwork that was given to us, and I'm sure we've all read it. And it only says to receive the report anyway. It's not to vote on any decisions. It's just to receive the report. So I'll second your comment. I'll second you, Mr.
Good vote on that. And that's unanimous as well. Thank you. Right. Okay. So I'll now read out the confidential matters statement. So to resolve under the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960 in accordance with Standing Order 7.3.2 to exclude the press and public on the grounds that publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted. The council has a duty under law, for example, as employer to the individuals whose personal data or other confidential information is required to be or is likely to be discussed. The council is otherwise bound by law or compliance with a contract that requires a matter to be discussed confidentially in line with the 1960 Act. Now, the point of this, the report itself includes a number of specific elements that relate to individuals, members of staff currently with us or possibly in the future, and that's why I would propose that we take this into confidence. Somebody happy to second that? Councillor Anderson, vote on that? Yes. Thank you. Right, so date of the next quarterly council meeting is Monday, the 27th of April 2026. So we'll close to the public at this point. Take a 5-minute break.
What is this a quarterly meeting? Quarterly meetings every 3 months.
It is.
March, April,
We don't meet. We don't.
So if you did explain it to them.
I don't know, they're last,
It should have been August, we did away with the
I
August walk,
I
we
don't
didn't we?
know, they're the ones that were on the list left over from last year, no idea.
Should be every 3 months, shouldn't it? It's true,
It
so-
should be, yeah, it should be. Well, it was agreed by the previous mayor, isn't it?
Julian, I'm sorry about that. Some very strong.
Diplomatic. Yes, yes.
So if we had get your email address.
Way on top.
Is there
Why is he asking me about?